All right, so we have a new undisputed UFC light heavyweight champion of the world. He's the Ninja. He goes by the name of Jiri Prochazka. He defeated Glover Teixeira in one of the most thrilling bouts in the main event of UFC 275. And that's why I'm here, because I wanted to sit down and share some thoughts about the fight. But before I do, my name's Rahul J Chan. This is the Battle Camp. Thank you very much for joining me. If you're new to the channel, please do consider subscribing. Now, look, full disclosure, this is actually the only fight that I've seen on the entire card. So my intention on Saturday night stroke Sunday morning was to wake up for the Weili Zhang Joanna fight. And I failed miserably. My alarm went off and I kind of tried my best to open my eyes, but they just weren't complying. I ended up waking up towards the end of the Valentina fight, and then I drifted back to sleep, and then I woke up for just before the main event started, and for the entire main event, for the entire fight between Glover and Jiri, I was alive, alert, awake, and enthusiastic, because it's one of the best fights I've ever seen in my entire life. Now, look, going into this fight itself, I was a little bit disappointed in the card, simply because to me, UFC 275 is kind of like a milestone event, right? 3/4 of a century. I felt as though the card should be deeper, and I'm not talking about the kind of the three main fights of the main card. I'm just talking about what was stacked underneath it, because it wasn't much. But from what I understand, it was actually one of the best cards of the year. That's what I've been hearing. And I don't know whether that was just recency bias. People have been excited by the main event itself and the near kind of upset in the co-main event with Valentina and Santos, that people are kind of giving it more credit for its entertainment value than it actually deserves. But for what I can say from my own opinion, the main event, the Glover-Jiri fight, that by far exceeded my expectations going into the fight. Now, there was a bit of intrigue for me going into this particular fight, and I'll tell you what I kind of thought going into the fight, and then I'll explain to you guys how I was so wrong, right? I felt that Glover was doing a slight disservice, because it seemed as though he was kind of the big underdog amongst the MMA community out there. And I felt the kind of the overriding thought process going into the fight was, if Glover gets to the ground, he stands a good chance of winning, and if it stays on the feet, Jiri has a massive advantage. That's obviously, it makes sense for people to think of it that way, but it was almost as if people were positioning it as an old school striker v scrappler match. But I'd seen enough of Glover on his feet to know that he packs a punch. And I felt like he was, being done a disservice on that front. And I personally hadn't seen enough of Jiri on the ground to suggest how good or bad he is when it comes to grappling, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu, right? But going into the fight itself, I did have this this gut instinct kind of telling me that Glover's going to win. I don't know why. I felt maybe it's because Jiri gets hit quite a lot, and I know Glover can hit hard. And I felt as though the people that Jiri has had success with, they bite on his feints and his movement a lot, and it stops them from throwing. And I felt as though Glover is a wily old vet that wouldn't play that game so much, So the fight itself, it was a back and forth war. There were ups, downs, peaks, troughs, and literally from start to finish, it was highly, highly, highly entertaining. Now, I felt as though Glover was kind of getting tired halfway through the second round. Definitely by the time the third round started, he was struggling for breath, right? So for him to persevere and pull through and get to where he got to in the fight, and actually more so than that, because on the scorecards he was winning the fight, right? So if he survived the last 30 seconds or whatever it was of that final round in that submission, somehow managed to worm his way out of that, he would have won the fight on points, right? So he put in a very, very, very solid performance. But we've seen enough of Glover fighting against top level opposition to not be surprised by what he did on fight night. What I want to talk about more so is Jiri, right? Because when he was getting taken down, when he was in bottom position, one thing that I can't really explain this from a technical standpoint in what he did and with his body and the way he moved to enable him to get out of the compromising positions. Like, for example, Glover Teixeira was in full mount, landing ground and pound on multiple occasions, and Jiri managed to not just survive but actually get out of that position a couple of times. And what I can kind of say is, like, Jiri is almost like a caricature of himself. And I say that because it's difficult to decipher where the real Jiri ends and the character that from the outside looking in, I think I see. And what happened on fight night kind of showed to me where I thought this guy's kind of just playing up to the cameras. I'm wrong. I don't think he is. I think he lives this ninja life that he talks about, that made him get the haircut that he has, that makes him dress the way he does, that makes him train the way he does. All the footage that we see, like the old kind of cynical bloke in me kind of just thought, oh, he's just doing this for the cameras. He's just trying to be a certain way to gain traction, popularity. He's trying to differentiate himself from the rest of the crowd. But I don't think he's trying to do anything after that performance. And the reason why I kind of equate the two is I've heard him talk quite a bit about kind of being strong-willed, strong-minded, and working and focusing on himself at a psychological level and trying to improve things in himself on that front. And what I saw in that fight against Glover was a good illustration of that, because again, I might be wrong, but I don't know whether he technically has the ability to get out of the positions that he managed to, or whether the driving force behind that was just his sheer will and mental strength to not accept the position he's in and not just lie there. Because sometimes you see a fighter, when he gets in bottom position, they grab a limb and just keep hold and just accept, all right, I'm here, so I've got two options. Either the guy on top of me is going to make a mistake and I can worm my way out, or the referee is going to think this is a bit of a stalemate and he'll stand us up. But Jiri never once accepted the position he was in, not once. And what I'm trying to say to you is, like, with that mindset and that willpower, to me, to my naked eye, it felt like he was a little bit lacking from a technical standpoint. So when he kind of is able to grasp the technical side of things, like the improvements that we're going to see, I think are going to be above and beyond, right? But the fight itself, like the reason, what I can kind of compare this fight to is, if you're kind of familiar with football, it's almost like when there's a really exciting back and forth match and one team has a golden opportunity to win, but they miss it, and then the opponent comes back and grabs a late winner. And the match that keeps kind of coming back to my mind with this is, if you're old enough to remember Euro 96, when England played Germany in the semi-final, and I think it was in extra time where the ball got put in across the 6-yard box and Gaza was there sliding in, and he was inches away from putting that ball in the back of them net, and then the game stayed a draw, and then Germany ended up knocking England out on penalties. But like, it was an epic encounter. Like, it told its own story almost, the fight did. Like, if you're not a fan of MMA, if you're not a fan of combat sports, but you sit down and watch it, you will see the waves of attack from both sides, and you will see the kind of ups and downs and the adversity that both fighters had to face, and the win, and the way in which Jiri won in the end. Because, like, obviously even the sequence of the fight at that point, because obviously Glover finally lands that big punch, he hurts Jiri and he's rocked, and you just think to yourself, go on, put your foot on it, put your foot down, start raining in those punches, make the referee have to make a decision. And he just defaulted back to the grappling, and he went for that front choke, or whatever you call it, guillotine choke. And Jiri was able to, I think even at that point, Glover ended up on top of Jiri, but then Jiri reversed it, if I'm not mistaken. But basically, Jiri ended up on top, I believe, taking the back and then getting the rear naked choke. And even when the choke happened, like, because where the camera was and the referee's back was towards us, and then Glover was tapping, but you couldn't see it from the initial angle that I saw it. And I see Jiri getting off him, and I'm thinking, what? Did he tap? Did he tap? What happened? Even the way the fight ended was dramatic. yeah, it was just a highly, highly entertaining fight that exceeded all of my expectations. Now, what's next for both of these guys? Now, Jiri, obviously, he's been on his parade in Prague, which is a lovely city, in front of what, 7,000 people, I understand. And you've got a number of people calling out his name. Obviously, Jan Blachowicz did it, you know, during the fight, or not during the fight, after the fight in the arena. Anthony Smith believes he deserves an opportunity if he wins his next fight. And obviously, you got Glover Teixeira. Glover Teixeira put in a valiant effort, and he's in the reckoning as well. He's said that he doesn't want to retire, and fair play to him. Like he fought at a very high level. He can definitely still mix it at that level. So, you know, why should he retire just because of his age? You know, he's still not fighting as someone that's way over the hill. Although physically, you could just see how bloody thick he is, man. You know, when he was on top of Jiri, you could just see the meat on his thighs and his arse pulls. But like, he was just such a big man, just such a big man. Like he isn't as like ripped and contoured as he used to be when he first joined the UFC, whatever it, 6, 7, 8 years ago, whenever it was. He's carrying around a little bit more kind of fat, but mate, he knows how to use it. You know, he knows how to use it. Personally speaking, I'd just love to see these two run it back, because it's a difficult game. If you put Jiri in with, I don't know, a Blachowicz, you can't just give Glover a warm-up fight. It's not the way the UFC works. I wish it did. I wish they could just give him a tick-over fight, one that he is likely to win, and then reschedule these two in a fight with each other. And then again, there's not a foregone conclusion that Jiri beats Jan Blachowicz if them two fight each other. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it's a bit of a sticky one, like having them fight other people. I think at the moment they've got a good bit of energy in a bottle, you know? Like if you can have Moreno and Figgy fight each other back and forth 3 or 4, 5 times in a row, wherever it is by now, I think it's fair that these two guys fight each other again, especially because there isn't a real clear-cut contender. There isn't a real clear-cut #1 contender at this moment anyway. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the fight. Obviously, I've been very, very inactive of late, and it's not even down to, you know, there's not an excuse for it. It's just laziness. Like, work's been really busy, yeah, but I still have the evenings to myself, and I tend to just relax and be lazy and not sit around making videos. Even today, like, really and truly, I should have reconfigured my room and filmed this, but I just couldn't be bothered. I very nearly decided to not make this, and then I thought, I'll tell you what, let's just do an audio. That way you don't have to tart yourself up, you know, spruce yourself up, and you don't have to move the furniture around in your room, and it's just a lot easier and it's quicker to edit. But yeah, I hope you guys are well. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and comment. Don't forget to comment. Let's talk, let's engage, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.